My name is Ibrahim Traoré. I am 35 years old, and today I stand before you not as the head of state of Burkina Faso, not as a politician with an agenda, but as your brother, as a son of Africa, speaking from my heart to those who share my bloodline across the oceans. I want to share something that very few in my position have ever dared to say openly. For over 4 centuries, our family was torn apart. Millions were ripped away from this land, carried by force to build nations that were not theirs, with sweat and pain and brilliance that was exploited. For centuries, you were told lies to keep you apart from us. But today, I must tell you the truth. You were never forgotten. You were never abandoned. And the time has come for us to reconnect in a way that could transform everything. What I will say may shock you. It may inspire you. It may even disturb you. But above all, it will open your eyes to possibilities that powerful forces never wanted you to see. There are stories of secret meetings in quiet corners, phone calls that carried more weight than treaties, and plans already in motion that aim to bring our divided family back together. If you stay with me for the next moments, you will see Africa differently, you will see America differently, and most importantly, you will see your own limitless strength differently. 2 years ago, I had an experience that shifted the course of my life. It was around 3 in the morning in Ouagadougou. Sleep would not come. My mind was heavy with the burden of leading a nation, struggling against terrorism, against the grip of former colonial masters, against the suffocating pressure of global powers. In that restless night, I turned on my computer and began watching events unfolding in America. I saw the videos. I saw George Floyd. I saw Breonna Taylor. I saw young black men and women filling the streets, demanding justice, demanding recognition, demanding the most basic human respect that no one should have to beg for. As I watched those protests, I felt a lightning bolt inside me. It was not just about America, not just about police brutality or injustice on another continent. No, I was not just seeing Americans. I was seeing myself. I was seeing my soldiers standing tall against foreign occupation, unarmed yet unshaken, demanding dignity where others tried to impose silence. I was seeing my people who have refused generation after generation to accept poverty as destiny, who know deep in their bones that misery is not natural, that exploitation is not divine will, that submission is not our future. The fire in Minneapolis was the fire in Ouagadougou. It was the same flame of anger, of courage, of refusal that once swept through our streets when our ancestors said enough to colonizers. That fire is not chaos, it is rebirth. It is the scream of a people tired of kneeling. The smoke that rose over American cities, I saw it as the same smoke that rises from villages across Africa, where young men and women refuse to surrender their land, their future, their dignity, to the hands of outsiders. The determination in Detroit was the same spirit I witness in my young revolutionaries here in Burkina Faso. The students who organize without fear, the farmers who guard their fields at night, the women who march with their babies on their backs and their fists in the air. It is the same energy that cannot be crushed by bullets, the same hope that cannot be drowned by propaganda, the same strength that refuses to be bought by promises of aid or false alliances. Realigned, when I looked at them, I saw that we are not separated by oceans or by flags. No, our struggle is one. The pain of an African American facing injustice in his own homeland is linked to the pain of an African farmer watching his land stolen for foreign profit. The chains may look different, but they are forged in the same factory. And the hands that break them, whether in Minneapolis or Ouagadougou, belong to one human family, rising against centuries of oppression. That night, I called my grandmother. She is nearly 90, the living archive of our family's memory. I told her what I had seen, and I asked her something I had never dared ask before. I said, "Grandmother, when our people were taken across the ocean, did we ever stop believing that they were still our family?" For a long time she was silent. I thought she had fallen asleep. But then she spoke words that shook me to my core. She said, "Ibrahim, every night for 400 years, African mothers looked at the stars and wondered if their stolen children were looking at the same sky. Every harvest, food was set aside for relatives who might never come home, but who were never erased from our hearts. At every celebration, we sang for the voices taken from us, voices we refused to let die." Then she whispered words that made me weep. "We never stopped waiting for you to remember who you are." That was the moment I understood something profound. The separation between Africans here and Africans abroad was never natural. It was manufactured, enforced, sustained by systems that feared our unity. And that night, I made a promise to myself. I would no longer accept that division as permanent. 6 months later, something extraordinary arrived at my desk. A letter from Dr. Aisha Williams, a professor at Howard University in Washington, D.C. But this was not an academic paper. It was a personal cry, a testimony of a woman who had searched for her origin. For 3 years, she had followed her bloodlines through DNA tests, oral history, and old records. She had traced her ancestry to the Masi Kingdom, right here in Burkina Faso. She had found the village, even the names of her great-great-grandparents. She wrote, "Mr. President, I know where I come from now. I know my village, I know my history, but I do not know how to come home. I don't know if after 400 years, there is still a place for me here." I read that letter over and over. Each time, I felt shame. Shame that a daughter of this land could feel like a stranger in her ancestral home. Shame that centuries of separation had left scars so deep that she doubted her belonging. That night, I did something no president had ever done. I called Howard University. I asked to speak directly to Dr. Williams. This note sheet. I asked to speak directly to Dr. Williams, and when she answered, I said to her, "You are not a foreigner here. You are not a guest. You are a daughter returning home, and we have been waiting for you." We spoke for hours. She told me about her life in America, always having to prove her worth, always being the only black voice in academic rooms, always carrying the exhaustion of fighting for space in systems that were never built for her. But she also told me that when she found her African roots, something in her shifted. For the first time, she felt part of a story larger than oppression, larger than survival. She felt part of a story that began before slavery and would continue after it. I made her a promise that night. I told her she would not be the last. I told her we would build bridges for every scattered relative who wanted to reconnect. And that is how this movement began. Quietly, carefully, away from the cameras. I reached out to African Americans not as a politician asking for support, but as a brother seeking reunion. The first to respond was Marcus Johnson, a software engineer from Oakland. When I called him, he could hardly believe it. "Presidents don't call random black Americans," he said. But I told him he was not random. His great-grandmother was born here before being forced to America. His brilliance in technology was not separate from Africa. It was a continuation of it. His struggles with racism in Silicon Valley were no different from our struggles with neocolonialism. He came to Burkina Faso, he met our young innovators. He expected to find people waiting for his help. Instead, he found peers, equals, visionaries who expanded his own imagination. By the end of his stay, he had co-founded a company with them. Not charity, not aid, real partnership. He told me, for the first time, I wasn't the token, I wasn't the exception, I was just another black professional among my people. I felt normal, I felt at home. That was just the beginning. Soon after, Dr. Michael Thompson, one of America's leading heart surgeons, called me. He said, "I've spent my career proving black excellence in medicine. But what if I could be excellent without having to prove it first? What if we built institutions of our own?" We spoke for hours about creating medical schools and hospitals rooted in both modern science and African traditions. He pledged 6 months of his time to Burkina Faso, and he promised to bring others. And he did. Through him, I met a network of engineers, educators, financiers, and activists who all shared the same longing, not to escape America, but to connect with Africa and create something bigger than themselves. The momentum grew. We held a private summit with 50 of the most accomplished African Americans I had connected with. What was meant to last 2 hours stretched into 8. We spoke of a future Africa that processes its own resources, manufactures its own goods, develops its own technology. We spoke of building not with foreign investors, but with family. And in that meeting, commitments worth $75 million were pledged. Not donations, but investments, partnerships, institutions that would outlive us all. Of course, the world took notice. Pressure came quickly. Ambassadors requested urgent meetings. Loans were mysteriously delayed. Media outlets began to question my agenda. Some of my new partners were investigated at home, questioned by their employers, warned by their governments. The message was clear. This connection was dangerous, too powerful, too real. And then one night I received a call from a man with a French accent. He told me plainly, "Your activities with African Americans are being monitored. Be careful. Remember what happened to Thomas Sankara." But what they failed to understand was that we had already crossed the threshold. Once you taste unity, you cannot go back. Once you feel family, you cannot return to isolation. Fear could not stop us. Because this was never about me. It was about healing a wound that had been open for centuries. Today, that healing is happening. Partnerships are growing. Businesses are being built. Clean energy is lighting villages. Medical schools are training a new generation, and something deeper is taking place. African Americans are coming not as tourists, not as saviors, but as family. And Africans are receiving them not as foreigners, but as long-lost brothers and sisters. I will never forget what a young woman from Atlanta told me after spending just 5 days here. She said, "I have a good life in America. I have a career, a house, security. But in these few days, I felt something I never felt before. I felt normal. I felt my presence was not questioned. I felt like I was home." That is the essence of what we are building. Not just economics, not just politics, healing, wholeness, the ability to be excellent without apology. And this is only the beginning. Leaders in Brazil, in the Caribbean, in Europe are reaching out. Institutions in America, colleges, associations, businesses are asking how to join. What started as a conversation is becoming a movement. I see a future where African American students study in Accra and Lagos as naturally as in Washington or Atlanta, where African students attend Howard and Spelman not as foreigners but as family, where entrepreneurs build businesses that bridge both sides of the Atlantic, where our elders choose to retire here not as expats but as grandparents returning home, where young people grow up knowing that oceans may scatter us but they can never sever us. And this journey has changed me too. When I first put on this uniform and when I became president, I believed my mission was clear, precise, almost simple in its definition. I thought my duty was to free my nation from the grip of neocolonialism, to strengthen our economy so that no child would go hungry again, to defeat terrorism so that our villages could sleep in peace. And yes, these remain urgent. These remain sacred responsibilities. But along the way, I discovered something deeper, something heavier, something that speaks not just to Burkina Faso, but to the entire black world. I now know my true mission is larger. It is not only about borders, not only about government, not only about the soil beneath our feet. My mission is to help heal a wound 4 centuries old, a wound carved into the very soul of our people. A wound that has never truly closed since the first ships left African shores carrying our brothers and sisters into chains. That wound did not end with the abolition of slavery. It carried on through colonization, through segregation, through humiliation, through the theft of wealth, through the lies that tried to make us forget who we are. It is to reunite a family once divided, a family torn apart by force, scattered across oceans, forced to speak different languages, forced to pray in different ways, forced to carry different passports, but still one family. And like every family separated by violence, the longing to reunite never disappears. I see it in the eyes of the African diaspora who still feel Africa beating inside their chests. I see it in the faces of young Africans here who dream of their brothers and sisters abroad. We are branches of the same tree, cut and scattered, but destined to grow back together. It is to prove to the world that when scattered people unite, they become unstoppable. Because unity is the greatest weapon that has ever existed. No empire, no colonizer, no corporation, no army can stand against a people who rediscover their common destiny. Imagine an Africa united with its diaspora, our resources joined with their skills, our courage joined with their knowledge, our soil joined with their global presence. Imagine the strength, the power, the unshakable dignity. That is not just politics, that is resurrection. And so, my mission has become more than leadership. It is reconciliation, it is healing, it is the restoration of a family torn apart by chains, but bound again by spirit. It is a calling greater than me, greater than any presidency, greater than any nation. It is history demanding correction. It is the future demanding unity. It is the ancestors whispering, "Bring my children back together." My brothers and sisters, we have already proven that this connection is possible. We have shown that when artificial walls are removed, natural bonds return. We have demonstrated that African Americans need not choose between American identity and African heritage, and that Africans need not choose between authenticity and global belonging. What we are building is proof that the impossible is not only possible, it is inevitable. But inevitability still requires choice. It requires courage. It requires people willing to step into history. The door between Africa and her diaspora is open wider than at any point in 400 years. The question is, will you step through it? To my brothers and sisters in America, you have spent centuries proving yourselves in systems that were never meant for your success. You have excelled beyond every limit placed on you. You have nothing left to prove. The question now is, what will you build? Will you continue to be exceptional within systems designed by others, or will you join us in creating systems designed by us, for us, to last generations? If you choose to answer this call, Africa will not treat you as guests, but as family. Your skills, your wisdom, your identity will be honored. Together, we will not build symbolic projects, but living institutions. Every step you take, African hands will reach back to meet you. You were taken, but never erased. Scattered, but never lost. Forced to build others' dreams, yet you kept your own alive. Now you have the chance to return, not to a museum of memory, but to a workshop of the future. A continent rising, a people unstoppable. The reunion is happening. The only question is, will you be part of it? Come home, my brothers and sisters. Your family has been waiting.